they defined the debate in terms of, well, how are we going to get rid of the deficit at the schools? How are we going to get rid of the deficit in the city? Well, what is a deficit? We all have a deficit every day. What's our deficit? Is we owe the banks money, right? That's what the city deficit is. That's what the school deficit is. That they owe a tremendous amount of debt service to the banks. My view is, to hell with the deficit. And the truth of the matter is, the situation in Detroit has been defined in this way. It didn't just start. It didn't start with Bob on the schools. The school board was cutting the schools before Bob. And they were doing it, and they did it before Bob. And you know what? They're going to do it after Bob unless we redefine the debate. The city of Detroit was eliminating jobs and imposing wage cuts and cutting services before Beam and with the last city council, and it's going to keep doing it with the next one unless we redefine the debate. The question in my mind is what we need to present is what is our agenda? And that agenda is that education is a right. And every school needs to be kept open, and they need to have reduced class sizes, and the schools need to be palaces for our children to go to. It should be defined that a housing is a right, and that no bank or landlord has the right to throw anyone out of their home. It should be defined that utilities are a right, and DTE or nobody has a right to impose freezing homes on people or to make people live without electricity in the most richest country in the world. It should define that a job is a right. And if the government and if the banks and the corporations won't employ you, then the government has a duty to do it.
That's right.
And that's what, and what we need to do is define the struggle in those terms. We've raised for a long time the concept, and we still need to raise it, that we have a state of economic emergency.
Yes.
And why do we raise that? During a period of emergency, the people's right to survive is primary. Hell, the Supreme Court held it. That in a period of emergency, the people's right to survive supersedes contract. So what does that mean? That the people's right to stay in their homes, that the city workers' right to their jobs, that the right to public services are primary. And if the banks can't get their money because the first priority is to keep people home, so be it.
Yes, that's
that if
right.
schools have to stay open and the schools can't pay off their debts to the bank, so be it.
That's right.
That's how we have to define the struggle, and that's really, I think, the answer. We get trapped into the thinking that they impose on us. And it's the thinking is that they are entitled, the banks and the corporations are entitled to their money first, and the people's rights come last. We need to reverse it. We need to reverse it. And the way to reverse it is to launch a struggle. In my mind, one of the things we need to do, and I believe a lot of our fight now, it's not that people aren't in the streets, they are in the streets. But we have to redefine how we fight. And we have to say, this is our agenda. If you need a job, the government has a responsibility to keep it. If you're facing an eviction, there should be a moratorium on eviction. If you're facing utility shutoffs, there should be a moratorium on shutoffs. If you're homeless and take over a home, you should have the right to stay in your home. And the government and the corporate has the ability to keep you in that home. If you're in a school, the schools need to stay open because of the anchors. It's obvious, we know what's needed. But we got to get out there and agitate for this. And I say that's first. And the last thing is the banks and the corporations. To hell with them. Isn't that what they've done in this country? They created this huge crisis, and they presented the bill to the government and got paid off. Well, we got to say this is our bill. We have these rights, and we got to define them and say that's number one. And before you talk about anything else, let's talk about guaranteeing the rights for the people, and then we'll come up with how to make sure it's funded properly. I believe that's the key.
Can we go to city council?
We should go to city council. We should go to the mayor. I think we need a petition out there that we circulate everywhere. The state of Detroit is a state of emergency. In a state of emergency, we demand moratorium on foreclosures, moratorium on evictions, moratorium on school closings, redefine politics. The people who define it now are the banks and corporations. They're calling every shot. They call it with Obama. That's the problem with his mortgage plan. Because Geithner, who tells them who runs the mortgage plan? It's Geithner, who works for Citibank. It's Rubin, it's all of them. We've got to redefine it. I believe that's our job. And I think one of the things maybe we needed to do is have a petition. A petition so we can get out there and talk to people.
We got to get rid of Bob in the next 2 weeks.
Of course we do. We should be at every demonstration. No one's saying.
We got to get rid of him, y'all.
But I'm just saying that if you got rid of Bob, what are we going to propose after Bob? We have to have our own agenda. And the agenda is to guarantee people's rights to the fundamental things. That's what we're demanding. And I want to propose that. I mean, obviously, we should support every demonstration. When the city workers out there, we need to be out there. Someone's losing their homes, we need to be out there. When the demonstration at Bob, we should be out there. The school closed every hearing. But we got to define what's going to be said in a way that says, people, number one, people are first. We have rights, housing. These aren't esoteric concepts. These are fundamental. We demand our rights, and let's guarantee the rights, and that's number one, and that's the duty of the government, that's the duty of the politicians, and that's the duty that we have as human beings to take whatever action we have to do to make sure it happens.